Okay. I think we're live now. Hey, I'm going to send you this in the chat. There you go. If you will keep an eye on the chat for me and make sure the video looks good, because I need a second monitor and I don't have one yet. which, by the way, I need to... Hold on a second, guys. We're trying to get everything sorted out. Make sure my... Let's see. Webcam settings. There we go. Hopefully that looks... It's weird. I don't know. Alright. Looks like Jesus is getting ready to come through my room, or my apartment, but whatever. Okay. So anyway. So it looks like it's just me and Dave on the weekly pool today. Sal is somewhere where there's no internet whatsoever, and Vinny said he had a meeting with somebody. So, I guess we'll just be talking about the House of M. What do you mean? What are you talking about? My whole screen is in a corner of my screen. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Yep, just us, because everybody else bailed out. I guess right off the bat, ask the people in the chat if they have any questions. Because I figured it'd be an awesome session, awesome chance to like answer questions that subscribers have, and that like fans of us have, of me, Benny, and Sal, even though they both bailed out on us. Oh my God, Dave. Oh my God, damn it, Dave. But all right, so you finished reading The House of M. Okay, so what'd you think of it? You gotta liven it up, Dave. We're live, man. You gotta pep it up. All right. Yeah. You talking about the X-Men companion to the House of M? Hmm. Oh, okay. But you read like the main House of M storyline, though. Okay. Okay. See, that was the thing for me. Like I loved the story of the House of M. Like I thought it was really, really interesting because the whole idea of having some character that would warp reality and effectively like give everybody what they wanted, I thought was really like it was pretty interesting to me. But the way it played out, like it wasn't like there was trouble in paradise basically because you had like Doctor Doom doing his whole thing, you know, and you had him trying to like overthrow Magneto and trying to establish himself as the head of yeah, I guess all of mutant kind. And I thought that there were some really cool undercurrents to the story. But in the end, I mean, you just got like this super powerful chick that warps reality. And have you read Decimation? You know what happens after? Okay. They can't hear you? Wow. All right. This is a work in progress, people. I have never live streamed on using Skype before. All right. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Let's try that. Okay. Can people hear you now? Well, probably here in a few seconds. hmm Like they can't hear you at all, or they can barely hear you. Well, talk with the people in the chat. What kind of questions are they asking? At least I'll try to answer some of the questions they have while we're waiting to. Oh. hmm No, you're coming through. I can hear you fine. The problem is on my end, I think. Let's see. That's weird, man. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Well, this stream is certainly turning out to be something fantastic, isn't it? My God. Can't get our shit together. People can't hear. Basically, ask me your Marvel questions and I will answer them. uh, let's see. Probably Original Sin for right now. But it's really the only one that I'm reading. Oh my God. Huh. Well, as soon as I get this audio figured out, I'll be able to answer that question. No one can hear you talking at all. There's no audio on Dave's end. Huh. I don't know. I don't think it has anything to do with the stream. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Mm. All right. Hold on, hold on 1 second, guys. We're gonna see if we can fix this. Okay. Hopefully it's back. Say something, man.
Hey, how's it going?
If not, we might have to postpone this terrible podcast until next week.
I'm not gonna be here.
Oh my god, dude. We cannot get you and Sal in the same place at the same time. I swear to God, man.
Well, that's good though, because at least you have a third then.
Yeah, well, where are you going to be at next week?
Surgery.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, man. Like, damn it, Rob. How come you can't remember that? I'm terrible with
Either
names.
that or like we're gonna do it like way later at night, and I'm probably going to be zoned out on anesthesia and painkillers.
Wow. All right.
You want to just try to restart everything?
I don't think that's a problem. I mean, I just like redid OBS, so. And this juice tastes terrible. It's like Canthol. Or not Canthol. Menthol. It's called Thug Juice, actually. But we will try some.
And you and your vaping, man.
Gets me off
Everybody in
cigarettes,
the
man.
vaping.
Yeah, dude. Gets people off cigarettes. You know what's gonna happen,
Oh,
man? Like, what?
they can hear me now.
Oh, they can hear you now?
Well, at least I can hear me in the stream now.
Can everybody hear Dave?
Alright. Now
Everybody?
apparently I'm way too loud.
You're way too loud. Okay.
I'll fix that on my end.
Well, no, I know how to fix that real quick.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys. Does Dave sound better now? He probably will here in the next few seconds or so. We'll get it sorted out, man. We'll get it sorted out.
Alright. It says now, well, did too, for a second, too loud. I think we just have to wait for the stream to catch up.
Yeah. The stream's going to be behind by a few seconds, by 5 or 10 seconds. What's so funny?
Well, it's just like we're talking and we figured out that we fixed the issue, but the whole stream's like, it's way too loud.
Everybody just screaming it's too loud. It's too loud, man. Oh my God, Rob, get your shit together, man. I guarantee that's what people are saying. Like, damn it, Rob. Oh my God.
Alright, so I think now hashtag vape, hashtag the struggle.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
Alright, so since we had the audio issues, what's your favorite running currently at Marvel Weekly?
Original Sin for right now. Like, Original Sin is the only one that's really running that I'm reading. But Original Sin is not very good the way they're doing it right now. But I think it's the direction they're going in. Like, they made Nick Fury old, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of silly. Like one of the things that we'll be talking about during my Franklin Richards videos, we'll be talking about the Franklin Richards paradox. You know what the Franklin Richards paradox is?
No. Well, no, you were talking about it before, I think. It's where we think that Franklin Richards wills everybody to be young just because he doesn't want anybody to age.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like Franklin Richards is controlling the entire universe, the entire Marvel universe, and it's weird. Like like I said, like we'll be talking about this during Franklin Richards more in depth, but more or less, like Franklin Richards shows up in Marvel Comics, and for like the first 20 or 30 years that he's in Marvel Comics, he just doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, he becomes Avatar at some point where he makes himself this old Christ-like dude, and it's weird. Like his powers will like flare up, and something will happen, and then they'll die down, and he becomes part of Power Pack, and he uses his powers for a little while, and then that goes away, and then it's like it hits the 90s and the 2000s, and then his character becomes more prominent. But from the time that he's first introduced to Marvel Comics up until the present day, like characters don't really age. Some characters do. Like
Hmm.
Nick Fury got older, but most characters don't age. And so the question here, or the argument that people make, is that Franklin Richards is willing everybody to be young. Is the audio better on the stream?
Yeah, nobody's complaining anymore.
Because everybody left.
Oh, um, just came in. Dave, you were still a bit loud compared to Rob, but it's not as bad.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to lower it down on your end a little bit, and we'll see if that
Yeah, let's do
might
that.
be better. We'll see if it works.
All right, I've lowered it down about 20%.
Okay. Hopefully that sounds a whole lot better in the stream.
Yeah,
Um, but Franklin Richards is this really cool character in Marvel Comics because the problem with a character like Franklin Richards, and like I said, we'll don't worry guys, we're gonna do like a 25, 30 minute long video on Franklin Richards. But the problem when it comes to Franklin Richards in Marvel Comics is you can't do a whole lot with this character. I mean, when you have a character that can warp reality and fix anything by snapping his fingers, what can you really do with him? I mean, now
yeah.
he becomes really cool, and there's some really cool stuff that happens with him later on. But it's like the adult Franklin Richards. So when we get into like the Future Foundation, and we get into the Fantastic Four and Reed Richards, then there's like an infinite number of him, and they all meet in like this weird location, like this Nexus kind of place, and there's like an infinite number of versions of him. I don't think we see like an infinite number, but I think there's like a whole ton of versions of him. They all meet together and they all try to fix every problem. I mean, it's you get into some really weird and wild stuff. And Franklin Richards becomes more important later on, especially when he makes Galactus his herald. But in the end, like he's still a character that you just can't do a whole lot with because how many times? It's like the Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch was a character who was cool when all she could do was do hexes, and she could do magic on people, and she could make people do stuff, or she could, bend things in her will or in her favor, something like that. And then all of a sudden, she goes crazy after Avengers disassembled. She warps reality, makes the House of M, changes it back, and all the mutants are gone. So her character is one of these characters where you can only do so much with her because if a person can warp reality, then what would be the use for them if they can fix any problem anywhere, anytime, doing just simply thinking about fixing it. It's one of those silly concepts. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, but I also think that balances her character, and it gave them a good reason to do House of M.
Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things where a character that's like that almost has to be crazy because their powers are that really she doesn't even realize what reality is anymore because she has those abilities.
yeah. Well,
Literally, she can think anything into existence.
that was the thing.
So,
That's what made her so. That's what made her so dangerous because when the House of M first started, when you had the very beginnings, like issue number, I don't remember if it was the prelude or if it was actually issue number one, but when Xavier called a meeting of the Avengers, the X Men, and a few superheroes here and there, they were gonna kill her. That was
yeah,
one
I
of
think that was zero issue.
Okay, yeah. Xavier wanted to kill her. I mean, you had like Cyclops who was like, "There's no way we can do this," and Captain America said there has to be another way. But Xavier and Doctor Strange were like, "This chick's warping reality and she's going insane. There may come a point where she can change things, and we can't. There's no way to change it back because she's just gone crazy." So with a character like that, the House of M was about as far as you could go with the Scarlet Witch. That was really it, and that's the thing that I'm interested in when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Are they going to make her a character like she is in the comics? Because in the comics, she had like all these crappy life experiences. Like she was almost burned alive because she used her powers out in public and all different kinds of stuff. And when it came to like the shards of Mephisto and her believing that she had kids even though they didn't really exist, her character just became more and more insane as time went on and just led up to this. So you had Avengers Disassembled. Did you ever read Avengers Disassembled?
I have that in the mail right now.
Okay, I won't ruin it for you, but you had the Avengers Disassembled
Well,
event. Huh?
I've said before that I don't mind things getting ruined, but you might ruin things for them, and that might piss them off.
Well, ask them if they care.
But that's what you do all the time.
Ask them if they care if I go over Avengers Disassembled. But keep in
All
mind,
right.
guys, Benny is going to do Avengers Disassembled on his channel too. So we're not going to go we won't go really in depth because I think he'll do a really good video on it. It'll be after Guardians of the Galaxy month though, so we're talking about probably September before he does it, or August before he does it. But we'll see what's up. Are you typing that in the chat?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know. You told me to ask him.
Well,
Why can't you
I
just
mean,
ask him?
like you could just. Well, I guess I could have asked them. Like, why are you, unless they can't hear you, then
You're
it
like,
should be fine.
Dave, ask him. Okay. Do you guys care about Avengers Disassembled?
I mean, if they want me to go over it, I'll go over it. If they don't want me to go over it, then I won't go over it. But
Alright.
it's an interesting story. But the Avengers Disassembled is like a necessity to understand what goes on in the House of M. That's why I'm waiting until Benny does Avengers Disassembled before I do House of M, because then it'll just be like, oh my god, the Scarlet Witch is just nuts one day, and no one really understands the
Yeah.
build up to how it happened. But all right, so what do you think? Like, do you think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to make the Scarlet Witch like progressively insane?
I I don't know. I think so. I mean, the cinematic universe has already got her kind of in like a crazy padded room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think she's already insane. I just don't know if she's powerful enough to do anything with her powers yet.
Well, I don't know. See, that's the thing. Like, we only have a glimpse of her, so I don't know if it's that she's crazy or that she's just developed her abilities and she's figuring them out. But like, the Scarlet Witch had this upbringing where like her and Quicksilver were basically raised on their own. Like, they basically like took care of themselves for a huge portion of their lives. I mean, they were raised by the Maximals for a while, and then she used her powers and blew up the house, and so they
Yeah.
ran off. And for the most part, they were just teaching themselves what they needed to know as they went along. And then they encountered Magneto, and Magneto instills his insane ideologies in the two of them and screws up their lives. And so now they move forward with that. They eventually become superheroes. They join the Avengers, and she has all these weird experiences. But throughout all this, like, her mind is just slowly being screwed up and slowly being warped. And then eventually it all just comes to a head with the House of M storyline. All right. Do you think that what they did at the end of House of M was a good idea?
Where they basically reversed everything.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, where they basically
They removed
what?
all the mutants.
They removed all the mutants. I
Well,
think it was a good idea because there was too many mutants.
yeah.
I think that was the reason for this event, is that there were too many mutants
Yeah.
and they had to get rid of some. And then I haven't read too far after. Like, I've read the Decimation book for a couple different characters, but I haven't read, anything directly after this event. So I don't know if they kept it that way. I think they did.
Yeah.
I was reading. There was another X-Men book that came right afterwards that centered around Rogue and a couple other X-Men, like a team that they put together. And I know they were talking about it a little bit and how it hurt to have so few mutants on Earth when there was like almost 1 million.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So, what we're going to do in this podcast is we're going to do a Marvel Explained. A Marvel Explained. Within this podcast. So, all right. So you've got the House of M event, and guys in the chat, like, I'm going to spoil the shit out of the House of M and all this stuff coming up. But it's cool. It'll make for a cool topic during this podcast. So, What you have is you have the House of M event. You have the Scarlet Witch who goes nuts, warps reality, gives people a future where, or gives people a reality where, for the most part, they get everything they want. Like Miss Marvel is recognized as the greatest superhero in the world, and that's her fulfilling her desire to be accepted. You have Magneto, who is at the very top, the peak of all of mutant kind, and that gives him what he wants because he always wanted a future where mutants were basically the ones running the show and didn't have to live in fear from humanity. But he had no real concern for humanity itself, which is the reason why humanity is being treated so harshly and in such a terrible way during the House of M event. And then you got other characters, so on and so forth. And you've got like Wolverine, who still remembers both things. You've got Layla Miller that wakes people up, awakening them or whatever it is that they call it in the thing. What are people saying?
People are saying, could you give your thoughts on Children's Crusade? I've never heard of that. And another person, Gar55 Rocks One, asked you if you could do a Marvel Explained eventually on the Runaways.
Yeah, I'll do a Marvel Explain on the Runaways. If that's what people want, yeah, I'll do Marvel Explain on the Runaways. But anyway, so you have this House of M event. It comes to an end. The Scarlet Witch's final words, the most infamous final words, some of the most infamous final words in Marvel Comics. Right before she changes everything back, she says, "No more mutants." So, bam, reality goes back to normal, followed up immediately by Decimation. And Decimation is basically mutant kind in panic mode. They're running around, they're freaking out. The whole world has realized that there are basically no more mutants left. So then you turn over to the Office of National Emergency, one. And so that's why, like, when you see like one Sentinels, that's what those are, the Office of National Emergency Sentinels. You have all this craziness going on where mutants are now basically like these refugees. They're running, they're trying to escape people that are persecuting them more so than before because a lot of people, like a lot of groups like Friends of Humanity and so on, see this as a chance to eliminate mutant con from the
Yeah,
face of the planet forever because there's so
easy
few of them.
picking.
Exactly, easy pickings. There's so few of them. So you basically have the Xavier Institute being turned into like this refugee camp for mutants. And that's where we pick up with Civil War. Civil War takes place the same time as Decimation. And that's why the X Men have virtually nothing to do with Civil War because they're trying to get their own stuff figured out. That's why it was a big deal when X Force broke in and liberated like a whole ton of mutants from the Xavier Institute because there's so few of them left. And so that's why you see Cyclops and Iceman, all those guys trying to round up the mutants that have been liberated by X Force because they want to make sure that mutants aren't eradicated entirely. After the House of M, you have an event called the Son of M, and that actually revolves around Quicksilver. And what Quicksilver does is he tries to rekindle his relationship with Crystal, who was one of the Inhumans, and they were on again, off again for a while. And she had actually spent some time with Johnny Storm as well, and so on and so forth. But I believe that Quicksilver and Crystal had a child together. But Quicksilver goes to the Inhuman threshold, the Inhuman place, wherever it is that they're hanging out. I don't remember if they're on the blue side of the moon right now, or if they're actually still on the planet Earth. But whatever it is, he goes to the Inhumans, and then he encounters a future version of himself that had used the Terrigen crystals to enhance his abilities, and is actually able to travel into travel through time. And his future
Ooh.
self tells him something. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, what Quicksilver does is he takes the Terrigen crystals and he steals them. And then he gives his daughter abilities. He wakes up her abilities, and she actually has the power to see people's intentions because their color will change. Like people, I think, who have negative intentions will turn red. People that have positive intentions will turn green, and people that don't care, like yellow or something. I can't
Like
remember what the
like
color is.
reveals that to everybody or
No,
just
just
his
her.
daughter?
No, he did. Well,
Wow.
he does it to everybody, but not to everybody. To a handful of people. What he does is he goes to Genosha, and
No,
Genosha.
I mean his daughter's powers.
No, no, no. His daughter's
Is it
powers are just confined to her.
okay?
Yeah, only she can do that. Um, so he goes to Genosha, and I don't know if you followed the event with Cassandra Nova, where she was just crazy. She was like a version of Xavier, something like that. I can't remember her exactly, but she had used the one Sentinels to massacre like 16 million mutants in Genosha. So even
Ooh.
before, yeah, like even
Oh
before the
yeah,
events,
I've heard about that.
yeah. So
Like
even
both
before
in the
the
comics
events
and
of the House of M, like mutants had already been totally ravaged. And so while there's really no more mutants there anymore, there really weren't a whole lot there to begin with in the first place. But what he does is he enlists like several mutants that he's basically going to use these Terrigen crystals on, and says like, I can give you your powers back. The first person he does it with is Callisto, and Callisto was the leader of the Morlocks for a time, and she has like enhanced abilities and enhanced senses and so on and so forth. It puts her senses into overdrive, and she starts going crazy. Like, it starts raining, and the rain feels like needles on her skin because her skin is like 100 times more sensitive than it had been before. And so basically, like, the Sun or Quicksilver just screws up entirely. He tries to give people their powers back using the Terrigen crystals. It gives them their powers back times 100 or something along those lines, and makes like a lot of people go crazy. And in fact, Callisto's mind, I think, is shut down, or something's done where she basically like shuts down entirely, and Magneto takes her away, and of course he chastises Quicksilver and so on and so forth. All right, after the House of M, after Decimation, after all that stuff, there's no more mutants being born. There are no more mutants in existence. And the question that was asked by Hank Pym at the end of House of M is, what happened to all the powers? Like, the powers had to have gone somewhere. Something had to have happened.
Yeah.
So we eventually see like this energy flying, like this red energy ring, like flying around the planet or something like that. Is when the House of M final issue, or the prologue or whatever, or epilogue or whatever it is, comes to an end. But we end up encountering this guy called Zorn, Xorn, and I can't remember. I think it's Magneto, but I think it was a guy before him. But basically, this was a person that had all the powers that had previously existed, or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, on top of that, you have Hope Summers. Now, do you know who Hope Summers is?
Yes. She's the one who takes on the Phoenix Force in ABX, right?
Yeah. Well, the Phoenix Force gets split around too, but when Marvel announced Hope Summers, it was a big deal because the question was, is Hope Summers going to be the new Jean Grey? Like, people thought that Jean Grey was going to be reborn, basically, because Hope Summers was going to look exactly like her. She was going to have red hair, she was going to be a harbinger for the Phoenix Force, so on and so forth. And so a lot of people thought that Jean Grey was going to make a return to Marvel Comics. So you have this point in time in which a mutant is born. When the mutant is born, it blows up Cerebro, or Cerebro, I think at the time is what it was called, because it just can't handle the amount of information that's coming in at one given time. It wakes up Apocalypse, like she wakes up Apocalypse out of a dead sleep, and like all these events start happening. So the X-Men travel to Alaska, I think, where she was being born at, and find the entire city's been destroyed, and most everybody's dead. Come to find out, you have William Stryker and his purifiers. You know about William Stryker?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Well,
you
he's a
have,
big part of the X-Men movies and in Weapon X and
okay.
all sorts of stuff.
In the comics, William Stryker was not a military guy. Like, he was not in the military. In the comics, William Stryker's a reverend. He's a preacher. And he's
Oh,
crazy.
really?
Yeah, he's crazy. He thinks it's his mission from God to kill mutants. And he goes back a long time. Like, he goes back to 1982, Chris Claremont's run of X-Men, I think. But he's been around for a long, long time. He was the major focal point in the X-Men story, Man Loves, God Kills, which I think is what X-Men number 2 or number 3 was based off of. But in any event, you have the Purifiers, and the Purifiers are like these paramilitary guys that follow William Stryker with his ideologies, no matter what it is that he says. And so you have all these people that are hunting for Hope Summers. You have Sinister, I think, who made Predator X, which is like this crazy-looking beast animal that can either absorb or is immune to the powers of almost everybody. You have William Stryker and his Purifiers, and you have the X-Men, and I can't remember if you have another group. It might be Sinister's forces, but everybody's trying to find Hope Summers. Everybody's trying to get this kid. It's the first person born since M-Day, and from what Marvel has really explained to us, she's like this stupid, powerful character. All right, that kicks off Messiah Complex, and you have all these events going on. You have basically this cat and mouse game. Eventually, we learn that Cable was the one that got her, that picked her up, and Cable's trying to keep her safe, keep her from being killed. His rationales, I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Bishop is trying to find her because Bishop believes that she's the one that's going to cause his timeline, and she's going to be the one that kills a million humans. Do you know about Bishop's timeline? Have you ever read about that?
I haven't read about it, but I know it exists because he has to be traveling back in time for some reason,
Okay.
right? Like that's his like how things are supposed to happen timeline.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Are people in the chat asking me anything? Do they want me to keep going, or do they have
Let's
questions
see.
they want me to answer? Because I
Um,
don't want to keep talking about something they don't care about.
um, they want you to do an X Force explained. It looks like. It looks like they're talking with each other a little bit.
Hmm.
Cassandra Nova was Xavier's twin sister that he killed in the womb.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember how she
Uh,
was tied into Xavier.
the comments are no longer automatically updating on my end, according
Really?
to this guy that just has symbols for his name. Cyborg. But
Cyborg.
it's all spelled in like weird like text.
Well, let me make sure the stream's okay. Yeah, the stream's good and everything.
Yeah, it's automatically updating on my end.
Yeah. Um. All right. So Bishop's timeline is really interesting in the realm of Marvel Comics. So Bishop comes from a timeline that's very similar to the Days of Future Past. All right, and I think I don't know if Fox got that confused, or if Fox screwed up, or if Fox just watched X-Men the Animated Series and said, let's do a version of that Days of Future Past episode, which was really cool. I mean, it was a cool two-part episode, but my favorite episode from X-Men the Animated Series was actually One Man's Worth, because the whole conflict in the beginning was really cool. But Bishop comes from a timeline that's similar to the Days of Future Past, in that in the past, some kind of event occurred that kicked off the whole Sentinel program being rebooted. And just like it happened in Days of Future Past, the Sentinels began writing their own programming basically, and they reasoned they had to enslave both humans and mutants because mutants are a version of humans, and all of them are a threat, and so on and so forth, and yada yada yada. All right, the difference here is that in the Bishop timeline, they had an event called the Summers Rebellion, and that was when humans and mutants rose up and overthrew the whole Sentinel threat. Now, along the way, or I guess after this is over, you have Bishop joining something called the XSE, which is the Xavier Security Enforcers or something like that. I can't remember. But the
Yeah.
whole reason why this was established, why the XSE was established, and that's where he's wearing that suit, the gray and red suit that people are most familiar with. The whole reason why this was established was because after the humans and mutants overthrew the Sentinels, there still had to be a way to keep mutants in check. There were always going to be rogue mutants, bad guys, and so on and so forth. And so the mutants wanted to be policed themselves. They wanted to police their own people. They didn't want humans going after them because one, humans wouldn't know how to deal with them, and two, humans would be much more harsh than they needed to be because there was still a lot of hatred by humans against mutants because in their eyes the mutants were the ones that caused this whole timeline in the first place. And so you have Bishop, who's part of the XSE. He's initially avidly against them, and then he encounters somebody, I can't remember who it is, and this individual like spurs him on to become part of the XSE. And then that's compounded by the fact that his grandmother, I think, would tell him stories about the X-Men back when the X-Men were, part like an active member of society and before they were eradicated and so on and so forth. So anyway, he joins the XSE. His sister Shar joins the XSE. She ends up becoming his boss. Some stuff happens. She becomes this kind of like powers vampire or something like that. I can't remember. But he ends up having to kill her. But he also is chasing after her boyfriend at the time, Trevor Fitzroy. And Trevor Fitzroy jumps back into the past. Some events happen. I can't remember what it is. But in any event, this leads Bishop back to the main Earth 616 timeline. All right. This is the 1990s of Marvel Comics. All right, this is 20 something years ago. All right, fast forward to right after the House of M. Bishop realizes that Hope Summers is the one that destroyed a million humans in his timeline, or believes that's the case anyway. And so his goal, his effort, is basically tracking her down and trying to kill her. Like, that's all he's trying to do. And so you basically have this cat and mouse game going on where you have Bishop jumping through time, chasing after Cable and Hope Summers, who are jumping through time, and they're both trying to elude, Bishop entirely. In addition to this, you have Apocalypse, and Apocalypse has reawakened himself. He's awakened again after the whole aftermath of the House of M event and Hope Summers and so on and so forth. And he actually offers his blood. Like, he shows up at the Xavier Institute and offers his blood, saying it'll give people their powers back or something like that. And they yell at him and they kick him out, and of course he goes into hiding again. But we have like a whole like multitude of crazy things going on involving the X-Men in Marvel Comics after the House of M, because you have these people that are trying to protect what's left, the 198, which is the 198 mutants that are left. You have Apocalypse that's trying to reassert himself as the dominant figure in all of society. You have Bishop that's chasing after Cable and Hope Summers. You have Hope Summers, who could either be the Messiah, or I think Marvel says she could be the Messiah, or she could tread on the graves of a million people or something like that, which was them saying that she's the one that can cause Bishop's timeline. We don't know what road she's going to take. It's entirely possible that she could become this crazy person. Like she's the center of a storyline called the 12 Lights, I think, which is where she finds these 12 individuals and wakes up their dormant powers, or their powers actually I think may have already been manifesting, but she like basically like brings these individuals into the fold. And Hope Summers becomes a pretty powerful character in Marvel Comics. Like she's I think listed as an Omega level character. She can copy the abilities of anybody that she comes across. She can like use their powers. She's a harbinger for the Phoenix Force. She's a really 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 strong character. But the question is, what's the long picture here? Like, what's the long haul here? And this is what's really interesting when it comes to Marvel Comics. People look at like the Days of Future Past timeline. Like a person has sent me a message actually on YouTube and asked me, about the Civil War event and the Days of Future Past. And the question they asked is, what was the point of the Days of Future Past if it was going to happen anyway? Because they look at the events like Civil War and stuff like that. When it comes to like these alternate timelines in Marvel Comics, and even now they still talk about Days of Future Past and whatnot, but when it comes to these alternate timelines in Marvel Comics, it doesn't mean that these timelines are never going to happen. It doesn't mean they can never take place. In the Days of Future Past comic, Kitty Pryde went into the past and she stopped the assassination of Senator Robert Kelly, Moore McTaggart, and Charles Xavier. But it doesn't mean that there's no event that could happen later on down the line that could cause the Days of Future Past to happen. It just means that that particular instance was stopped, and the Days of Future Past may very well have been postponed. So just because Bishop is trying to stop Hope Summers, and for all as we can tell has failed doing so, doesn't mean that Bishop's timeline won't come to fruition. Just because Hope Summers is for the most part a superhero at this point in time in Marvel Comics doesn't mean that she will not end up killing 1 million humans, because maybe her powers run amok, maybe she goes crazy, maybe she loses control of them temporarily. Like, we don't know what it was that led to the circumstances that caused her to kill 1 million humans. All we know is that she did. And it started the whole, Bishop's timeline. So it's really interesting when you look at all these comics, because you see Marvel pointing to events that took place in the 1990s and saying this could still happen. The Days of Future Past could still take place, and Marvel could very well end up, producing like this Days of Future Past timeline that'll eventually be thwarted. It's really weird the way they do stuff. Whether Marvel is thinking that far in advance, I would doubt it, but it doesn't mean that those kind of things aren't like a possibility.
So it looks like there's a couple things we have to discuss. I know I want to discuss at least one of these things, but uh, everybody seems to want us to talk about female Thor, how they're changing Thor to a female, and how Falcon is going to take over for Captain America.
Okay. I don't know anything about Falcon America about Falcon America about
It
the
was
Falcon
just
actor.
announced last night on the Daily Show.
Yeah, I don't. I don't. I
I
mean,
forget who it was, but somebody who's a big shot like organizer for the Marvel Cinematic Universe said, "Hey, we're gonna have Falcon take over for Captain America when Evans wants completely out."
okay. So that we'd have to speculate about, but I think it'd be fun. So, all right.
Well,
Regarding
yeah,
her.
well, I think it's going to happen. I think it's
Oh, I'm
like
sure it will. I'm just
what
saying,
they're
like,
doing.
it'll be fun to speculate, like, how it'll happen.
Yeah.
But all right. So the whole female Thor thing. All right, people have been blowing up my whole YouTube page with this for like days, ever since Marvel came out and announced it. All right. No one knows what's going on. I mean, there's some source material there. There's some information there. We don't know this character's backstory. All we know is this: Thor, as we know him, the guy Thor, is not able to wield Thor's hammer anymore. He's not able to wield Mjolnir anymore. He's not worthy of it. And so that mantle has been passed to somebody else. Now here's the deal when it comes to Thor. You have to you have to recognize that Thor is simply a title, but it's also a name. So Thor Odin's son is how most people refer to him, just to really illustrate the fact that he's the son of Odin. But the best way to look at it is to simply just refer to him as Donald Blake, because that's what he was in the comics. That was his alter ego. That was the tie-in, or that was the I guess the nod that Marvel had done in the first Thor movie. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so when she put the name tag on
So,
his shirt, it said Donald Blake. Yeah, that's his alter ego. Whenever he
well,
travels
that's
the
my
planet Earth.
ex.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. That's it's Jane Foster's kind of she's an alright character. But the point is that Thor is not able to wield the hammer anymore, and that mantle has been passed to a woman. Now we don't know who she is. We don't know what her backstory is. We don't know any of that stuff. All we know is that she is the new Thor. So don't think of it as though Thor has had like a sex change or Thor has like adopted the
Yeah,
persona
no.
of a woman. It simply means that there is a woman out there now that wields the power of Thor. Now the question is, was this a good move by Marvel? And I think it was a terrible move. And the reason why is because Marvel said that they want to build up this element of having like a prominent female superhero in the Marvel community. And they rationalized that by saying that the big three, as far as they considered it, was Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. Where they got Iron Man in that whole thing, I have no earthly clue, but that's how they established the big three in Marvel Comics. All right. They wanted a female version of one of those three to play a prominent role of one of those three. But I think that was a stupid idea because there are so many female characters out there right now in Marvel Comics that just don't get a whole lot of recognition, or they're just isolated
Right.
to like supporting characters. Miss Marvel is a perfect example. Miss Marvel is a character they could have easily elevated to the front line. And you know how they could have done that? Like what they could have done is they could have taken Skye from Agents of Shield. You ever watch that show?
Yeah.
Okay. Skye from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was basically healed using Kree DNA, as we would assume that was a Kree that was in
Mhm.
the in that pod that was used to bring back Coulson. All right. If they had said that Skye is going to be Miss Marvel, her name's not Carol Danvers, but she'll be Miss Marvel, that would have immediately raised the popularity of Miss Marvel, and people would have been like, okay,
And Agents of
and
Shield.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah. And people are like, okay, we got to find out who this Miss Marvel is. We got to talk about this character. We got to talk about, why isn't she named Carol Danvers and yada, 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 and so on and so forth. But nonetheless, they would have taken a female character in Marvel Comics who, for the most part, since her inception, her first introduction into Marvel Comics, has played the role of a supporting character and immediately elevated her like to like a frontline character. But they didn't do that. They made Thor a chick, and it's silly to me. Like it's a silly idea. Do I think that women need more representation in Marvel Comics? Of course, and there definitely need to be more like prominent female characters in Marvel Comics. But Marvel's had that chance all along. Has had that opportunity with so many female characters all along. Like you had She-Hulk. She-Hulk was a member of the Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
She-Hulk was a member of the Avengers. She-Hulk had her own comic books, but Marvel never did a whole lot with her. They never made her like a front mainline character. Even when she was part of the Fantastic Four, she was basically just like throwing stuff around. She was like the hired help, like the hired muscle, and that's how they treated her. And if Marvel really wanted to make female characters more prominent and draw in the woman reader that's interested in Marvel Comics, then they should have taken one of these characters that already exists, that has a backstory that they don't need to make, and made her a prominent character. And I mean, that was a problem with Miss Marvel when she was part of the Avengers. Miss Marvel really was useless as part of the Avengers. I mean, sure, she was strong and she did some cool stuff, but for the most part, she was just the person that said, "Oh my God, Captain America, the bad guys are coming," and then everybody would fight, and that's it. And it really kind of sucked that they made her that way. So to me, I agree with the idea that there needs to be a stronger female character in Marvel Comics, but I think that making Thor a woman was the wrong way to go because now they've got to create a backstory for this character. Now they've got to bring up and make sure that the continuity remains relatively consistent. Not only that, I guarantee a time's going to come when Thor's going to be able to wield his hammer again. And so now what's this chick going to do? Like, what role is she going to play? So,
Well,
I don't know.
what was what was the thing with is it Bill, the the horse creature that gets
Beta
part
Ray
of
Bill?
Thor's powers? Yeah, Beta Ray Bill.
Beta Ray Bill can wield Thor's hammer, but I mean that's about it. That's what he was most. I
Well,
mean,
in
huh?
in the Simonson Omnibus, they fight side by side,
Hmm.
and I think Odin gave him his own hammer that's maybe not quite as powerful, but
Yeah, he has a hammer that's comparable to the powers of Thor, but or to the hammer of Thor. But the fact is, like, he's one of the very few people who was actually able to wield Thor's hammer. But like the question has to be asked here is why is it this girl is worthy of wielding Thor's hammer? Who is she? What's the story behind
yeah.
her? I mean, Marvel could come out and say this is Jane Foster, and people would just be like, "Oh my God, really?" And
But
people would just kind of
that's
freak out.
yeah, that's what we don't know yet is what Marvel's gonna do with it.
Yeah, and but
So
even then, like I said, I'm looking at big picture here, and the problem here is you have Marvel that's created this strong female character. I mean, she has the powers of Thor. So she is about
mhm.
as strong as anybody is going to be in the Marvel comics. She can wield Thor's hammer, which means she has a one up on virtually everybody in the Marvel comics because there's really only a handful of people that can even wield Thor's hammer to begin with. So right off the bat, she's immediately been elevated to one of the most prominent characters in Marvel comics. Now everybody wants to know what's the big picture here? What's Marvel looking at? Are they really going to remove the male version of Thor from this picture whatsoever and being able to wield the hammer of Thor? Thor's still going to be there. He's still going to be able to, he has a battle axe and he's still going to be a prominent character. He's still going to have all the powers of an Asgardian. He's going to have physical, super strength and all kinds of good stuff. The difference here is he's just not going to be able to wield his hammer. So, are they going to reintroduce that element eventually? Are they going to say, okay, Thor Odin's son can wield his hammer again, and this girl's just going to be, are they just going to relegate her to yet another position of a supporting character? And that's why I say I think it was a terrible idea for them to make this decision because you already have women characters in Marvel Comics that are well established, that have
Mhm.
great histories, and they have great origin stories. But Marvel's not
Well,
going
and
with
they're
those characters.
strong, like they're strong characters too.
Yeah, I mean, Miss Marvel is
They
Miss
have
Marvel
they
has a
have both physical abilities and they're not just bimbos.
Yeah, like Miss Marvel has basically like has the powers of Superman in Marvel Comics. She's not nearly as strong as Superman, not by a long shot. But the fact is that she can fly. She has super strength. She can do all these really cool things, and they're just not really doing anything with her character. I mean, she's extremely durable and so on and so forth. And like I said, they could have easily turned Sky into Miss Marvel and immediately elevated the prominence of Miss Marvel in the Marvel comics because people would have wanted to know more about her. I mean, she's had solo series here and there. They've been short run, but I think that this was a terrible decision by Marvel to have a female version of Thor when they could have easily just taken characters that people already love and made them prominent characters in Marvel Comics. I don't know. I
All
mean,
right, so back to the comments, I suppose. So says, let's see, back from where I left off. New Miss Marvel is a great female character, though. She's actually really well done, and the comics are pretty fun.
yeah,
Uh, Pull a Stormbreaker and get her own hammer. Uh, I that's what I would think. I
yeah,
mean, I would think that maybe Odin or somebody else powerful would give her her own weapon, but like you said, it really doesn't matter if it matters what they do with her character.
yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if she has the same power set or not. It matters is she going to be a strong character that's in the forefront, or is she just going to, disappear into the background or just become another character that's in the background?
Yeah, I think that's what'll happen. I think that she'll be a super strong, prominent character in Marvel Comics for like 6 months to a year, and then Marvel will be like, okay, we got to bring Thor Odin's son back, and so maybe they'll give her her own hammer. But the fact is that at the end of the day, she's not going to be a unique character in and of herself. She's going to simply just be a copy of an existing character, and that's
Mm.
not what Marvel needs if they want to create a strong female character in Marvel Comics. They don't
Right.
need to create a character where people were, especially like younger kids, younger guys, are going to look at her and say she's a copy of that guy. It's going to take away from the idea of having a strong female character in Marvel Comics. They need to create a character that already has, or use a character that already has a unique backstory and is already interesting. That's why I keep pointing to Miss Marvel or She-Hulk, and they need to say, this character already is already established in Marvel Comics. We're just going to elevate her and make her a more prominent character than she was before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, uh, Tara says, not 100% on this. I haven't rewatched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think I remember it saying that she was a self-assigned alias.
Maybe.
That
I don't
ringing any
remember.
bells to you?
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'd have
But,
to go back and rewatch season one to recall.
but they could still potentially give her powers. They just
Yeah.
have to develop over time.
I mean, the one thing to keep in
Um,
mind is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe takes place in what we would consider to be an alternate reality of the main Marvel comics. So the characters, for the most part, remain the same, but they may be entirely different people. So,
yeah.
I mean, like Ultimate Spider-Man, like you have Peter Parker, but then eventually Miles Morales takes over the role of Spider-Man. So the character Spider-Man's still there. He's just played by a different person.
hmm Oh, and I forgot to mention this, but somebody had a pretty interesting perspective about uh, how the Marvel Cinematic Universe, uh, or wait, no. It was about Earth X and Paradise X and that whole alternate timeline.
Hmm.
They were turning the current 616 universe into that universe with the female Thor and a couple other things. I'd have to look back in the chat.
Yeah. I
But
actually haven't read like the Earth X, Paradise X series or any of that stuff. I
I've
need to
been
check it out.
wanting
But
to.
yeah, I've heard
But
it's really good.
again, I collect hardcovers, and that's one of those hardcovers that's far out of print, and it's like $300 or something ridiculous like that. And I just like
Yeah, man.
I'm waiting for a reprint, I think.
Dude, go out and try to find like mint condition covers of like old school comics. Like for example, Franklin Richards first appeared in the Fantastic Four annual issue number 6 in
Yeah,
1968, I think. That comic sells for $220. So
yeah,
good
just
luck
the
trying to
comic
find
alone.
it. I mean, finding one of those that's in mint condition is going to be stupid difficult to do, and if you do, you're going to pay through the nose for it. But,
Oh, speaking of those that are worthy, can Falcon wield Thor's hammer? I'm assuming like Captain America.
I mean, all right. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about Falcon taking over the role of Captain America. Okay. So for those of you that are following the Civil War storyline, we're going to spoil the hell out of how Civil War ends for the most part. Um, so Civil War ends with, uh, well, man, I don't even know. Ask him. Ask. Do you guys want me to ruin the end of Civil War?
Yeah.
Because do what?
I was just saying, yeah, like
Oh, okay.
comment.
Because what happens with Captain America directly ties into how Civil War ends. So, if we're going to talk about Falcon taking over the role of Captain America, we could, but we'll end up spoiling Civil War. Because I have a feeling that they're going to do it the way it was done in the
I
comics,
think we've
but it's going to
talked
be
about
fun.
that in the past on the podcast, Rob.
About
I
Civil
think
War?
most people know what happens because well, for one thing, it was highly publicized when it did happen,
That's true. That's true. Okay.
and
So,
it's pretty common knowledge at this point what happens to Captain America at that point in time.
well, some of my fans have not read or know about Civil War, and I don't want to ruin it for them. But okay, so
Spoiler alert, if you
spoiler
don't
alert.
want it, stop watching or mute us for like another 10 minutes and then unmute us.
Yeah,
How's that sound?
that sounds good enough to me. Um, all right, so I'm not sure how they're going to do this. In the comics, in Captain America issue number whatever it was, Captain America gets assassinated. All right, they've already introduced Sharon Carter to us. And Sharon Carter is the one that deals the killing blow. Now, she was being hypnotized by Dr. Faustus and a ruse that he had going on with Red Skull, and so on and so forth. Nick Fury is behind everything, like he's talking to Bucky Barnes as they're watching all this go on. And their goal, I think, is to break Captain America loose. But nonetheless, Sharon Carter, like, I think Crossbones shoots him initially. Sharon Carter runs up on him and shoots him in the stomach, but she doesn't realize she was the one that did it. It's not until the end of this. I'm sorry. It's the death of Captain America, issue number 1, and it's not until the end of that comic that one of the minions of Dr. Faustus, I can't remember what her name is, tells says something to Sharon Carter that causes her to remember what it was that happened. I think she actually says, Dr. Faustus says, remember. And she recalls the fact that she was the one that shot Captain America. Now, after Captain America is killed, because in the comics, in that comic, like he dies supposedly off screen and or off panel, and it's actually like we learn in the news that he was confirmed to have been killed when he gets to the hospital. But Bucky Barnes takes over the role of Captain America for a while. And that's my question. Are they going to flip? Are they going to substitute those two? And if they did, then what was the point of introducing the Winter Soldier? Because the whole element of Bucky Barnes and the Winter Soldier was that it was his return to Marvel Comics. It was his kind of redemption from all the horrible things that he had done when he was the Winter Soldier. And then he supposedly makes up for it, or really kind of, I guess, solidifies himself as the premier good guy by playing the role of Captain America. And so I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they going to have Captain America killed? I mean, we already have Crossbones, we already have Sharon Carter, so the stage is set for the most part. Some kind of, maybe the Red Skull returns, whatever it is that happens to take place, but Sharon Carter shoots and kills Steve Rogers. And so I guess Falcon would take over the role of Steve Rogers. But I don't know how they're going to do that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I'm afraid that, in all honesty, they're going to do it in a way that's stupid. But I mean, I don't know.
There were a few rumors I was reading that they were going to just kill off a bunch of the characters in Age of Ultron. Like, Iron Man was going to die or commit suicide. Captain America was going to get killed by Ultron. Just almost like a complete wipe so they could start over. They were going to have somehow, like, the female version of Thor take over for the actor that's playing Thor, Chris Helmsworth. It was just going to be almost like a complete wipe in Age of Ultron. But, like, I don't see that happening because that's just way too extreme, and some of these actors still have contracts.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they would do a complete wipe yet, because I also looked into a little bit of the contracts, and apparently the only person who is exempt from this is Robert Downey Jr. at this point, because he had to be re-signed and everything after all of this got, really popular with the entirety of comic book movies. But
yeah,
apparently the standard Marvel Cinematic Universe contract is 6 movies.
Wow.
And of course, after those 6 movies, an actor can choose to renew for another 6 movies or opt out. And Marvel can literally call you in and say, hey, you have to have either a cameo in this movie or you have to be the main role in this movie.
But you have to appear in
up
6
to
movies.
6 movies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s got his contract for the most part. I mean, he was in Iron Man 1. He had a cameo in The Incredible Hulk. He was in Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, The Avengers, that's 5. So Agents of Ultron will give him 6. So it may be that after this is done, he'll die.
Well, I heard that he had a contract for less than that to begin with, because he was one of the first people signed into the cinematic universe.
Yeah, that much.
So, like, I mean, they probably weren't planning on it absolutely exploding like this, and then a bunch of movies being made when he was signed originally. So I think he got re-signed for up to Avengers 3 and Iron Man 4.
I mean, I thought they weren't going to make an Iron Man 4 movie.
Well, I've heard a couple different things. I've heard that they're waiting to make it until Phase 3 after Age of Ultron. I've heard that they're waiting all the way up until Phase 4, and they're going to try to, re-sign him again for Avengers 3.
I
don't know.
I would say that Captain America 3 is probably when Steve Rogers will be killed. I mean, Captain America 2, we had the introduction of Falcon. and I'm sure that in some capacity he'll be in Avengers or Avengers 2. But see, here's the deal: if you're gonna have Falcon, if you're gonna have Sam Wilson take over the role of Captain America, then
Hmm.
it's gonna have to be done in a way to where people want to see him do that. So they're gonna have to build his character up. They're gonna have to make him more than simply a sidekick. Because in Captain America 2, let's be honest, he was a sidekick for Captain America. I mean, there was some character development, but we don't know his backstory in the comic books. We don't know his origins. We don't know how he became Falcon. All we know is that he just took on the wings, and that was it. I mean, we don't know what led him to being where he was in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, at least if we do, we don't know it on the same level that we do with Captain America. We had a whole movie dedicated to learning about Captain America, about Steve Rogers becoming Captain America. And so that's one of the reasons I think why Captain America 2 came off so good, because it was a movie that had the development of Steve Rogers by Chris Evans and then his role in Avengers. And so then you have Captain America 2, which deals with like modern day, hot button political issues, and the movie was just a wild
Espionage.
success. Do what?
There's a lot of espionage in that movie too.
Yeah, man, like it was a wildly successful film. I thought it was an amazing movie. And so if they're going to have Sam Wilson play the role of Captain America, then one, of course, Steve Rogers is going to have to be killed off, or he's simply just going to have to retire. I mean, I don't see Steve Rogers retiring and saying, I'm walking away from all this. I see him being killed off. I see him dying. So the question is, how is Steve Rogers going to die? And who's going to be the one to kill him? I mean, it could be Ultron, but that'd be a little lackluster, to be honest. It'd be too predictable. I mean,
Yeah.
Ultron shows up, Tony Stark, because as I understand it, from the information I've seen, Tony Stark is going to be the one that creates Ultron. So Tony Stark makes Ultron, I guess by accident, but unintentionally, and this results in Ultron's programming maybe going awry or something like that. Maybe he still develops the Oedipus complex, except now it's geared towards Tony Stark. And then you see that he runs amok, he goes crazy, a lot of people are fighting him, the Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, so on and so forth. Captain America dies in the fray. Maybe he sacrifices himself in some great big honorable way. I'm not really sure, but all that stuff is too predictable. And I'm afraid that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to go with predictable. And I'm hoping they don't do that. I'm hoping they go with unpredictable. I'm hoping that Captain America and everybody, all those guys, for the most part, the first tier characters make it out alive from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, he ends up being killed in Captain America 3. He's assassinated by Crossbones or something like that. Or maybe it's the end of Age of Ultron that he gets killed by Crossbones. I don't know. But either way, it's interesting. So, I mean, aside from a statement on The Daily Show, has this been confirmed by, like, Marvel as a whole? Like, Kevin, the
Was
CEO?
on the Daily Show.
It wasn't on The Daily Show? What was it on?
Well, no, I was wondering who was on it, like who was
Oh,
the
okay.
person. Because I forget, I read it yesterday, and I read over it quick, and then I kind of got back to reading this.
Yeah.
And, like, all right, so Marvel announcement.
So you don't have like Black Panther, the Black Panther tie-in from the House of M yet?
I'm not sure, that might be in the other book. I didn't really read too heavily into what issues were actually in here, because there's actually a Captain America issue in here,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple other characters are in here, so it could be in the book that's on its way.
No, that was the cool thing from the House of M, is when when Steve Rogers never became Captain America. He's just a really old guy who lives in like the slums, I guess, in New York. And that was interesting to me, because we already had a story. Like, his story was being built, and I personally thought that was one of the best written stories of the entire House of M event. But as for those of you guys who haven't read House of M, Steve Rogers never becomes Captain America in the House of M event. He actually he gets out of World War II alive. He marries Peggy Carter. They're married for a few years and then divorce. And he's just an old man living by himself. And when Layla Miller, who is this girl that can see into alternate realities and can know and knows that like the House of M reality is not right, when she starts waking people up to the fact that the reality is wrong, they go and initially try to enlist Captain America, but then they see he's just a really old guy, and they're like, well, I mean, he's not going to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So let's just, I mean, like, the hell
Yeah,
with it.
the Captain America issue, I think there might have actually been two issues in here.
There was a series. There were like three or four, I think.
Yeah, it might have been, but they read really fast, so I could have just flown through four of them without even knowing. But it's really cool because it actually describes how like House of M came to be.
Yeah.
like how they took over, and it that was really interesting to me how Nick Fury trained Wolverine, but like secretly they hated each other, and
Yeah.
um, cool stuff like that happened too. Um, so this was a really interesting book because I think it gave more of the backstory of the entire universe, how it happened,
Yeah.
rather than kind of just having the perspective of, oh, a flash happened and all of a sudden like all this stuff is different.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Like that's the thing. Like,
but apparently it was Joe Quesada
oh,
was on the Colbert Report.
well, if he says it, then it's true.
Yeah, like he's pretty high up. So
Yeah. So wow. All right. So the Falcon is going to take over for Captain America. Man, I want to know how this is going to happen.
because I know, like you took it back like really fast, but I know you didn't really care for Falcon's character
No, I didn't. I
the
wasn't. I was
first
not a
time you
big fan of
watched Captain
Falcon.
America.
I took it back because my subs were just like screaming at me. Like my fans were just, they were like, Rob, what is your problem? Like, the Falcon was awesome. All right, in the comics, Falcon is a great character. He's a great in-depth character. But the problem here is that we don't have decades of Sam Wilson in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have one
Right.
movie with him in it so far. And even then, there wasn't a whole lot of character development in that movie. For the most part, he's just like, hey, Captain America, I love what you're doing, and I'd love to
I
help
think
you
they
out. And
might.
he's like, okay.
I think they might really develop him during Age of Ultron. Like he might become a central character during that movie,
But that's the
if that's
problem.
not far fetched.
That's the problem when it comes to a movie like that. It's like Avengers. Like a lot of people complain that there was no character development in Avengers. Well, there wasn't supposed to be. All the character development had been done in their solo films. Why would you
Yeah,
develop
that's
characters?
true.
Yeah, I mean, you've got. I mean, the Age of Ultron is going to be the development of Ultron. Like they're going. I mean, unless they choose to go the Spider-Man 3 route and just have like all these character stories going on at one time, which was a total screw up. Um, I think that Sam Wilson will be a character that will slowly develop. I think that we got him in Captain America 2. I think that he may have cameos or discussions in other events. He might even appear in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2. I think that we'll get a little bit of character development in Avengers Age of Ultron. We'll learn some more about him, maybe a little bit of a backstory or something like that, or why. I mean, somebody's going to say, why are you even a superhero? You know, what's your deal? Or something like that. And then we'll get a little bit of backstory about him being young and so on and so forth. And then I think in Captain America 3 is when Captain America will die, where Steve Rogers will die, and he'll take over the role of Captain America. And we'll have that entire movie to learn more about the Falcon, to learn more about, Sam
Yeah,
Wilson as a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It makes sense to me anyway.
potentially. I don't know. It seems like Captain America, Chris Evans really wants out though. Like,
Makes sense. What are the people saying in the comments? Do they have any
let's
information that we do not?
um, they're talking like with each other about Earth X and Planet X and Paradise X.
Oh, okay. Okay. So they don't care about what we're talking
Uh,
about.
Captain America and Iron Man in that story, it would actually be cool if they tied into Planet X.
Hmm.
Uh, is the story with Miles Morales going to tie into the Civil War storyline? No,
No. Miles
that
Morales
doesn't
came
happen.
long after Civil War.
Well, and isn't he's not the actual Amazing Spider-Man, is he? He's an Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, he's the ultimate version of Peter Parker.
Yeah. Um, what do you guys think about Superior Iron Man? I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't read Superior Iron Man.
Not familiar. Yeah, I'm not familiar with
I
that.
need to get into the most recent Iron Man comics. The problem is this though, like doing all these Marvel explained videos, like I don't usually have time to like read current comics. So it's like, hey guys, here's what happened in Marvel Comics like 20 years ago. But I need to get caught up
Do
and start
not
doing
speak
current
of the
stuff.
death of Tony Stark.
Oh, he's gonna die. Tony Stark is gonna
Um,
die, and you know what? I bet I know how Tony Stark is gonna die. I bet Tony
Apparently,
Stark.
your mic is a little quiet still compared to mine.
My mic is wow. My mic is a little quiet.
took them all this time to mention that.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll be
Thanks,
louder now.
guys.
But, so here's I think is the question. I'm trying to word this right. What you said, I think, was a really good idea, or a really good point to touch on when you were talking about how you think that like a whole bunch of characters are going to be killed off relatively soon,
Yeah.
and in Avengers: Age of Ultron, and they're going to go from there. Because the problem that we have here is Marvel's introducing characters with established characters. So we have Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch coming up. As far as I understand it, the Inhumans are going to play a role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're going to appear at some point along the way. Um, there's characters that Marvel doesn't have the rights to right now that, of course, they can't include. The X-Men, all the other versions of the X-Men. So we're talking about characters like Sinister, Apocalypse, people like that. Marvel doesn't have the rights to any of that stuff. So all the characters that are involved in or that are part of the X-Men universe are not going to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So like Nate Gray, X-Man from the Age of Apocalypse, he won't be in any of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. So the Fantastic Four won't be there. I think Marvel made a terrible mistake by selling these rights off to other studios. But nonetheless, we're not going to see a lot of this stuff going on. So if they don't kill off some characters, things are going to become incredibly convoluted. Like we're going to have some major event that goes
Yep.
on later on down the road, and we're going to have like 90 people, all fighting together. I mean, and even then it
So,
raises, huh?
so here's another thing, Rob. Since you are starting to get swayed over to this viewpoint, I remember a time 2 weeks ago when you said that they were just gonna recast everybody.
I said no such thing.
I think you did.
um,
And then Benny started to somewhat agree with you.
well, I mean, if they wanted to keep the element of Iron Man and Captain America, I mean, that would be the only way to go. If they wanted to keep the element of Steve Rogers as Captain America,
Hmm.
and they wanted to keep the element of Tony Stark as Iron Man, then yes, they would have to. Because I guarantee that neither Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or even Chris Hemsworth are going to want to be playing these comic book characters, 7 years from
Forever.
now. Yeah, they don't want to be. Yeah, 10 years from now, they don't want to be playing Iron Man or Captain America or Thor. So
Um, Here's another interesting thing is they were talking about who was going to take over for Iron Man when RDJ wanted out, and it's either going to be Rescue, which I would assume would be Pepper Potts,
mhm.
or it's going to be War Machine.
I would say it's going to be War Machine because there was a point in the
I
comics
would say,
when Rhodes was Iron Man, like he did play the character of Iron Man.
mhm.
So I mean, eventually Tony Stark came back, and Rhodes went back to being War Machine. But I think that makes the most sense that Don
But
Cheadle will take over the role of Iron Man.
here's my issue with that is, does Don Cheadle have the ability to design that Tony Stark does? To design new suits and adapt the suit to new conditions like outer space and really cold temperatures and like anything that he might confront in the future, where Iron Man just destroyed all his suits and his servers where he stored all his research and stuff in Iron Man 3. Is that mantle going to be passed somehow, or is Tony Stark just flat out going to die
Well, that's why
and
that's why
somebody else take over that isn't as capable?
well that's why Tony Stark came back in the comics because it was silly and it wasn't believable. Like James Rhodes was a great Iron Man, but the problem is he's not a genius engineer.
Right.
He's a military guy. He's a friend of Tony Stark, and so it didn't make any sense that he would be able to continue the mantle of Iron Man long term because he can't design new suits. He can't sit down and engineer new suits. He can use existing technology for whatever goal that he wants to use it for, but in the world of Marvel Comics, like technology moves super fast, especially when you have like super advanced technological, places like Wakanda, or you have like Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, who has his whole future probability room or whatever it is, where he writes down all these equations about like how stuff's going to turn out. So, James Rhodes, I think, would be a great Iron Man for the short term, but I don't know how they would do it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would say that Tony Stark would be a character that they would have to either have operate off screen and new suits just get made all the time by Tony Stark, but you just never see him in the movies, or
Yeah.
they're going to have to recast Tony Stark when Robert Downey Jr. decides to leave.
Now, another thing is the consideration for Pepper Potts, and not necessarily that she's going to get really insanely smart and genius in the next few movies, but she, in the position she is in Tony Stark's company right now, could potentially have other people work for her secretly and develop new suits for her when she becomes Iron Man, if she becomes Iron Man or Iron Woman
I
or
mean,
Rescue.
there were characters out there that were smart and had an intelligence that was reasonably close to Tony Stark's, but there was only one Tony Stark. And even now, like
Oh yeah.
even in the current version, Tony Stark is still Iron Man. So there's been a couple people that have popped up here and there and taken his place, but there's no, at least as far as I know, he's still Iron Man. There's no, I mean, there's really no one else that plays Iron Man besides Tony Stark because that's that's kind of the that's one of the problems that I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to run into. You've got a guy who's a genius, who can design all forms of technology, and who
Mm-hmm.
can create these super amazing Iron Man suits for virtually any condition as long as he knows how to do it. Everybody else around him is not nearly as smart as he is. I mean, Happy Hogan is like a dumb boxer
Right.
in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is disappointing because Jon Favreau is an amazing actor, and Happy Hogan was a pretty useful character in the comics. He was a really cool guy. He wasn't, I mean, he was the, I guess, like the personal assistant for Tony Stark, but he wasn't the way he's depicted in the movies right now. You've got
No
Pepper
doubt
Potts.
they could change anything in that
They
regard.
they could they could. I mean,
I
you've got
mean, they could find a way to make him smarter, and I think in Iron Man 3 he was a little bit. I I know he kind of had his dumb moments, but he was a little bit more valuable to Tony Stark
well,
in Iron Man 3 than he was in I think 2, and I think he had minimal part in 1, didn't he? Like
yeah.
he
I
was
mean,
just literally a driver, and there
that's
was pretty
literally
much that scene where Tony Stark drove himself, and Happy was like waiting for him, and he like somehow caught up with him, and he was like, "Oh well,
mhm.
driving yourself. What use am I?" Like that was pretty much the extent of his character.
That was really about it when it came to Happy Hogan in the first movie. But I mean, you've got like Pepper Potts, and Pepper Potts is not. I mean, unless she's hiding some sort of genius level intellect that no one knows about, she's not going to be able to engineer stuff that the way Tony
But
Stark can.
she's very close to Iron Man in his design process, though.
That's true, but just because she sees somebody design something doesn't mean that she actually knows how to. I mean, there's with the Iron Man suits, they're so intricately designed and so advanced that it's not as though she's painting a picture. Like she has to, like she's not molding a sculpture. Like you're talking about where Tony Stark assembles the pieces of the clay in such a way that he's able to create this very intricate and specific Iron Man suit. And then you have Pepper Potts who would show up and just like make a molding, and it would look like an Iron Man suit, but as soon as you put it on, it probably just like fall apart and like the leg
Yeah.
falls off or something like that. I mean, I don't know, but you have basically all these people that surround Iron Man that none of them are nearly as smart as he is. Now you do have people who are smart, like you've got Justin Hammer, you've got people
Yep.
around him that are intelligent and could potentially maybe assist her, but at the end of the day, none of them are on the same level as Tony Stark is when it
Now,
comes to intelligence.
we've been talking about how they're going to make mutants into either Inhumans or Miracles,
Yeah.
in a way. Do they still have the rights to bring in characters from, say, the Fantastic Four, like Reed Richards,
No. To my
but
knowledge, those
not
all
have them
belong.
originate like the Fantastic Four
Mm-mm.
originated?
Nope. To my
Ah,
knowledge, any and all
because that would
versions
be
of the
good
Fantastic
too.
Four don't belong to them. So if they came along and they said, "Well, we have this guy named Stretcho, and this chick named Invisiwoman, and a guy named the Flame,"
Well, I'm
and
not even saying he
it's
has to have the abilities because part of his abilities originate in his origin story, and from what I understood, they just couldn't call the X-Men X-Men. They had to call them something different and
well,
have them originate different. So, like, I'm not even saying Reed Richards in the cinematic universe would have to have stretching abilities. he could just be a really smart guy who somehow ends up taking over for Iron Man eventually.
I mean, you could, like, if you read Future Foundation of the Fantastic Four, like, you get a lot of insight into the relationship between Reed Richards and his dad, Nathaniel Richards. And so you learn that even at a young age, like, Reed Richards was super smart. And he talks about that with his dad. He talks about how all the other kids around him are different because compared to him, they're all dumb. Because he's just so much smarter than all of them. And so even at a young age, his intellect was just genius level. And so you could have some genius prodigy that comes along, and Marvel says, "Well, this is Reed Richards, but not really." you know, his name
Oh,
is
they're saying in the comments Hank Pym could take over. No Doctor Doom means no Avengers AI storyline, but I don't like I said, I don't know if they would have the rights to use the characters the same way or
yeah,
not.
no, like Victor Von Doom, the Doom bots, all that stuff. None of that's going to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe unless the rights are given back. But Fantastic Four is being rebooted in 2016, I think it is. So that's not those rights aren't coming back anytime soon.
Arno is already building his own Iron Man suits. Who's Arno?
Arno,
Yeah,
I don't know what you're
ARN.
saying.
Jarvis did the labor.
Yeah,
But Jarvis is
Jarvis.
apparently going to develop into Ultron.
That'll be cool. Now that is actually something that I hadn't thought of. Tony Stark initially, like, he designed the physical suits, but Jarvis has, as long as Jarvis exists, the
Yeah,
information,
he
like, it could
has
just
all.
be an automated process.
Yeah,
I mean, that is
but
true.
I mean, how elaborate would the improvements be, though?
I mean, Pepper Potts could just say, Jarvis, design me a suit that can allow me to fly through space and has
Yeah,
like an oxygen tank that'll
might
last
take a
forever.
little longer,
Yeah,
but
it might. Yeah.
could happen because Jarvis is like an assistant. Like he actually makes decisions for Iron Man. He does calculations that Tony Stark doesn't have the time to do.
yeah.
All that stuff. So
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You know, it is. I'm curious to see what direction the Marvel Cinematic Universe will go if they choose to kill off some of the more prominent characters right now.
they're really talking about Planet X.
Really?
They're like, if Tony is the only genius, then it will be a Planet X feel to it.
hmm. Yeah, I need to read up on Earth X and Planet X.
Yeah, I really haven't read it either. So,
Yeah.
yep. Later, guys. We'll look into Planet X.
Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this podcast up. I think that makes sense. When are you gonna upload a new video, man?
Man,
You need to get on
I've
that.
been taking forever, but I've been getting called into work left and right.
Yeah.
Like they don't get how important YouTube is at work.
I know that
Like
feeling, man.
they're calling me in like a bunch of people because we're short staffed at work. Like we've only got 5 people working on like serving everybody,
Wow.
repairing computers, checking in computers. So like we need to hire more people. It's kind of like what happened when that guy went off on vacation or got sick at your work. How you were working all those crazy hours.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, people were doing it too because I was off for 10 days. So that's just. I mean, it's the
Yeah,
way it goes. I mean, it's a lot of overtime, which is cool and everything. But sometimes you just have to
yeah.
catch your breath. But
I'm making a lot of money,
yeah,
but
man. Well, you need to upload a video, man, so people know what comics they should
yeah.
read.
So what I'm thinking is I'm just gonna shoot all of the like B-roll footage and everything for the rest of my videos, so I have that handy, and then I can just record myself talking about it, kind of like I did with the last video I put up. I had B-roll of all the different
Yeah.
shots of the book itself and opening it up and all that stuff. So if I get all of that out of the way at once, that's a huge portion of the work that it takes to haul out my camera and get all the books into the right position and go about timing myself out right.
Yeah, man.
So I should be able to get all that done for everything at once, which would make it a lot easier to just make the videos later.
I mean, that makes sense. Um, well, I mean, as I told you guys, of course, we're going to be finishing up Civil War. We should have the whole series finished by Monday, and after that, I think I'm going to take a break for about a week or so. Maybe play some Call of Duty, like live stream some Call of Duty. Hopefully, I can play with Loyal Patriot. That guy's pretty awesome. I'm a mod in his stream, so I hope like I could be able to play with him. Um, and then we're going to do Franklin Richards, and then we're going to do Jean Grey, and then I'm not sure who we're going to do after that. So, but but yeah. So I guess maybe Benny and Sal will be with us next week. You said you're going to be gone next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone,
Well,
so I'm not gonna be here next week either. But for the next 2 or 3 weeks after that, I should have a lot of time.
okay.
So,
Well, that'll be cool. I mean, you'll be able to be recovering from surgery. So,
mm,
but yeah. So I guess we'll catch you guys later.
see ya.